Hello and welcome to another episode of DAWNCast. I'm Jayne.
And I'm Kathy Ngo.
And tonight we have a great panel here with us with the discussion around COVID-19 app. We thought, well, we'll get together a group of people to have a conversation around what is this app about and does it really matter, because we download apps all the time. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'm really excited about this one because it's a bunch of 6 cybersecurity experts. It's like we're all having a very highly intelligent party. I don't know much about cybersecurity. I think that I practice common sense when I download an app and press the terms and conditions without reading it.
That's right. But here we are. We've got a group of very diverse, group of gender, diverse background and geographically as well. Thank you for those who are joining us from interstate and internationally to have this discussion. So the first thing is, could we first of all ask you, going from Jackie, to just give a short introduction, your name and your background and your specialty. And so we'll go around just like a classroom here, because obviously it will take us a long time to kind of introduce you. So we'll go to you. So Jackie, we start from you, and then we'll go to Mark and then John, Vanessa, JJ, and then Jens.
Sure, I'll kick it off. I'm Jackie Lusto. I've been in cybersecurity since 2001. I've been working on various different industries, on different technologies, and currently I'm the founder of the Australian Women in Security Network, and also working for Cinch Security, which helps small businesses with their cybersecurity.
Thank you.
Yeah, hi. My name is Mark Smink. I'm the Chief Information Security Officer at JLL, and been there in the industry, in the IT industry, and for about 20 years and 5-6 years in security space, based in Sydney.
John.
So I'm John Tamplin. Despite my boyish good looks, I've had nearly 40 years in IT, mostly in the finance domain, with Visa, Macquarie, IAG, and Pricewaterhouse, which is now PwC. The last decade or so, I've been consulting for central banks and insurance firms. And the last 4 years, I've been working for the New South Wales state government. So a bit of diversity there.
Yeah. Thank you, John. Vanessa.
I'm Vanessa Teague. I'm a cryptographer with an interest in all kinds of things associated with security and privacy, but especially things relating to public things like elections and privacy of open data.
Thank you. JJ.
Hi everybody, my name's Jacqueline Jayne, known as JJ, it's a lot easier. I'm the security awareness advocate for the APAC region, working with KnowBe4, and I've been in the tech and people world for over 20 years, specifically cyber in the last 4 years, and very much into the education element, that human aspect of cyber. So every topic is of interest.
Thank you,
Thanks.
JJ. Jens, last.
Good evening. My name is Jens Lüttgens. I'm currently Chief Information Security Officer at UDG United Digital Group in Germany. And previously, I used to be a consultant and penetrations tester.
Sorry.
That's one of the first things that would like to ask all of you guys, tech guys. Some of the terminologies are really interesting. Before we go to the app, penetration tester?
Yes, ma'am.
Like, when we saw that today, we thought, what does that mean?
Well, it's someone who kind
Really
of
juvenile.
takes part in red teaming exercises and tries to get into networks. But the difference to a hacker is that we are paid by the one who owns the network to test their security.
Right. So that's the difference between a hacker and a penetration.
Sorry. I'm not
So
normally
we're
like
trying
this.
to penetrate their security, basically.
Yeah.
Anyone else on the panel who'd like to, talk about the penetration part of technology? Like, is that some of the terms are just, don't you think, a bit quite...
like catfishing
Yeah.
and phishing. For us normal folks, well, you guys are normal too, but we're like, what?
Yeah,
It's its own glossary.
It's again, it's very much it's a little niche. It's the niche circles. Everyone knows what's going on, what these terms are. Hadn't really appreciated the what that term actually sounds like from somebody outside of the security space.
Exactly.
But yeah.
Look, we're here to talk about the COVID-19 app. Have any of you downloaded it yet?
Yes.
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 We don't have one yet.
There you go. So can I go, obviously, Jackie, tell us, why you've downloaded it?
Yes, I've downloaded it. Pretty much did it on the second day because I really feel that, we need to do something in order to, it's going to help us get back to, a normal life. And if anything's going to be able to help us get there, then, that's really important to me. Yeah.
Ma?
Yeah, look, I think I did it on the Sunday night when it was released. It was flawless for me. And one of the first things that, again, I knew that it was going to have some issues with it. You'd sort of hear what's going on around the world, the Singapore, all the other different locations that have tried it. But again, like Jackie, just we need to support it. We know that these things are of value. It's better that they release something quickly and actually got it out there and started to get some sort of value out of it. So one of the first things that I did was, did it, and then I hopped on my social media and said, look, this is my perspective. I'm downloading it. I really encourage everybody else to. Just I guess we have a role in the security space. People go, well, maybe I'll ask Mark to see what he thinks of it. Again, understand that again, it's not going to be perfect. There's going to be lots of noise to try and roll out to 17 million people in Australia, or whatever the goal is. You're always going to have problems, but push through it. The benefits are there. So yeah, I'm a big supporter of it.
I'm going to go against the flow a little bit here, I think. So I didn't download it quickly. The original plan was that we'd take a little bit of wait and see. Didn't want to be on the bleeding edge. Quite happy to be one of the early adopters, but not quite bleeding edge. And so the idea was I was going to wait until we saw maybe the numbers start to creep up again. But the thing that changed for me was when the government announced that schools were going to be reopening. Now, I've got a teenage daughter. She's now going to be in close proximity to at least 20 children, other kids, and by extension, all their families. So that kind of was the thing that first tipped me over the edge to, yeah, okay, I'll do it. Number two was, by definition, I'm the IT geek in the house. So if my daughter's going to get something on her phone, I'm going to get it first and just kind of check it out.
Yeah, bit of competition.
And interesting, this whole COVID and the app has really been a bit of a journey for me, because since installing it and since doing a little bit of research about how it works, what it does and doesn't do, and the objective of the government for this, I've actually become a much stronger advocate for it. But the next part of the journey is I'm actually not sure it is going to provide the benefit we want, but I'll save that for later. Let's get through the path.
Vanessa?
I downloaded it so that I could decompile it and see what it was really doing. I haven't installed it on my phone yet, and I'm reserving judgment about whether to run it or not until I can see the server code, so I can check whether they've so I can have a chance to have a look at whether they've done their encryption right and are properly generating the encrypted pings that we all send out as we go.
Yeah. Okay. JJ?
Yes, I was probably more similar to John, I would say. I already had people asking me, are you going to download it, JJ? And I said, let me have a look, let me do some research and see. And I did a fair bit of research. I asked some ex-hackers to have a look and what did they think. And the interesting response there was 3 I asked, and 3 of them said they're reformed, by the way. 3 of them said, Facebook has more than this on you anyway. And do you want to save someone's life? I thought,
Yeah.
So I did think about it, and John, like you said, my son was going back to school. He's in year 9 this year, and I thought, well, the amount of information out there on me right now there's a lot if you really want it, and if I can help one person, great. Then I find that it doesn't actually work as predicted on an iPhone because I don't ever leave my phone unlocked. It's always locked. So they're still waiting for that. So as John mentioned, I don't even know if it's been worth it yet. But I certainly will continue with it and support others. And also, to Vanessa's point, respect anyone who doesn't want to.
Yeah.
Jens, you guys haven't got it yet.
No, I was going to say, wait, there's an app for that, but no, seriously, our government hasn't released one yet. So
is there anywhere else in the world that has a COVID app?
Yeah, there's in Singapore, they've got a similar one. But Jen, so what's the reservation in terms of for the Germany to release an app, or because it's based on an Apple and a Google app, so basically
it's going to be an Android and an iOS app, and basically in order to release an app, you need to have one first. We're not there yet because our government first, or initially, wanted to go with a decentralized approach, then went for a centralized approach, and then doubled down again once Apple and Google announced they wouldn't allow access to Bluetooth low energy for centralized apps. So now we are back to a decentralized approach. It's actually PEP-PT, which I think stands for Pan-European Privacy Protection Proximity Tracing or something like that. And that's the approach they're taking right now. And they are still, developing it as of now.
What's the difference? I mean, if anybody in our panel can explain the difference between a centralized app and a decentralized app.
I can probably explain this at least as well, although other explanations are very welcome. But the rough difference is that in a centralized app, it's really the notification that is done centrally. So both apps initially work by sending around Bluetooth messages back and forth. Everybody is pinging them out all the time, and everybody is remembering what pings they've received. In the centralized approach, if you test positive for COVID-19, you upload everything you've received to some central authority, probably the health authority in your country, and it can decrypt the messages that you've received and figure out which people you received them from and then notify those people. In the decentralized apps, the information flow is the other way around. When you test positive for COVID-19, you upload to effectively a public list, the collection of messages that you have sent. And then everybody on their own phone is able to look at the public list of pings that have been sent out by infected people and compute on their own phone whether or not they have received any of those pings and therefore been in contact with an infected person. So the crucial difference is that the test for whether or not you've been near an infected person gets done either by the authority in a centralized app and then communicated to you as a second step, or gets done in the decentralized solution on your phone by you, and then if you want to tell the authority about it, you can.
Right. Anyone?
Well, yeah, basically, I mean, that's functionally correct, but the major part is where the data is stored. It's either stored in a central instance, and all the logic happens there, or the data never leaves your phone until you say so. And the logic basically happens on your phone locally.
Yeah, and there's various iterations of it. So the way that Singapore did it, they and the way that they looked at it, they obviously they kept that encrypted packet or that of content of who you were with, and then only when they reached out to you using your mobile phone, they said, "Oh, look, here we go. This is." Your names come up on the list of people who've been infected. you mind sharing us with this information? So then you go, yeah, sure. It uploads it. They do the further analysis. So again, I think in that regard, to the earlier point, we do give up a lot more information. It's really the name and the contact point. As minimal information as we can actually get away with is I feel they've sort of hit the reasonable balance. They could ask for a lot more. There's no location. Well, there's some challenges around that, but really on the intent of it is just who you've been with. Again, it's just a number or an ID, really. It isn't really a name, so none of that's there. Again, it'd be interesting to sort of see how the more technical people can actually, what they can do with the encrypted data, with the encrypted packets, see if they can glean any other sort of information out of it. If that is the case, if that risk profile changes, then my position is likely to go and change as well. And I, again, encourage as many people to go and break this thing down, poke it, prod it, give it the best that our society of hackers have actually got. So yeah, but at the moment, my position is go ahead and use it.
And Australia has got one of the less intrusive apps out there. So China, Hong Kong, Taiwan, Israel. I hadn't actually realized Germany isn't out there yet, so we'll see what happens there. But certainly the first three I mentioned there are really quite intrusive. They do track location. If you're at some level of either infection or risk of infection, the app is used to track you. You need to check in. There's been some anecdotal reports about people who failed to check in and an hour later the police are knocking on their door. Now, the internet's wonderful for creating stories like that, but it's not unimaginable. So I think tying this all together, all the information that the app is gathering, and people have reverse engineered it and poked around inside the source, at the moment, and that's a big caveat, but at the moment, I could care less who's got that. If people want to know that I went to the coffee shop and I was surrounded by 20 strangers, knock yourself out. You can find far more about me on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, whatever.
And if you think about the alternative, it's about trying to remember where you have been at any given point as well. I mean, no one has that kind of memory to remember, okay, I was here at this particular point. I was in contact with X number of people. The app is trying to help with that.
Well, curiously, before I heard about the app, my wife, at my wife's suggestion, I can't take credit for this, we'd actually started a little diary. Every day you just write down where you've been. We do that. And it was so hard. I think I'm pretty disciplined. It was really hard. So I'm pleased to have the app.
I think it's interesting. I found out recently that you need to be in the vicinity, and as Bluetooth is a radio wave communication, it doesn't rely on the internet, that those two signals need to be in a handshake, so the technical term of connection, for 15 minutes for there to be any registration. So even getting your coffee, John, you might not even register. If you really think about even 14 minutes and 59 seconds and you walk away and you break that connection, it will not register.
No, I'm pretty sure that's not right. I think that's a misconception in what's been communicated. I think the app actually logs quite detailed information, but the government has undertaken not to notify people unless they believe it's been in contact for 15 minutes.
See, here we go. This is where the information pattern starts to become very confusing. So where do we go to find out if that's the case or not, Vanessa?
Well,
if you don't know, that's okay. I mean, I've found it really interesting to think, well, I'm not really in that many places in contact for 15 minutes these days.
Yeah, I think around the thing that got me early on is just prior to the launch of the COVIDSafe app in Australia, there was a lot of research done on and how the Singaporean app was actually deconstructed. So I spent a bit of time just looking through all of that and exactly what it collected and how it collected it and what was the purpose of it and again, again, you realize how little is actually there. But one thing I did realize immediately was that, again, it's quite simple in what it does, but the way that this could not gain traction is if the messaging isn't clear. Like you need to be able to get that message on the safety factors of this app and what it does. You need to somehow bring it down to a little image, a single page. You can't have the 30-second videos. You can't have all these big long steps. It's got to be so simple. You need to get like the brains to go, and that's the hardest part of making this work is to have a really very simple thing that is sticky. You can stick on a shop in a coffee shop and going, if you're here for 7 minutes, you guess what? Your data is not likely to be collected. Well, it's likely to be collected, but it's not likely to be used. And how it works when you're in shopping centres. So all of those, again, this is where the smarts comes into it, not so much technically, but actually getting that message across.
Yeah.
And I was a bit underwhelmed from what I've seen on the government website so far. They try it, but it's still too long, too much time, and you just sort of you drift off and before long you're going, hang on, what was I trying to say again? And it's just make it more concise, more simple, and so that there's stickers or just whatever it is, but make it easier. And that's where I'm hoping they're going to evolve.
I guess we can agree on the fact that you need to be transparent about how it works, what it does, for people to be able to, trust it or make an informed decision, at least.
Yeah, definitely. It's the whole communication aspect of a message. And I don't know about you, Di, but I feel as though it's been almost like, I mean, it's not a compulsory app, isn't it? But it feels like it's very much forced upon, for very good reasons, of course. But I think it's just the communication. I don't feel they got it. But what does everyone think about how they've communicated it?
And I mean, but before you go that, but if we're talking about it's a tracing app, or to track. Sorry, not trace, to track. I wonder how then Germany do you track, or don't track at all? But anyway, going back to what people think about, is it an enforceable? Should it be enforced?
What do you mean by do we track it all? Right now?
Yeah.
Or with the app?
With the app.
Right now?
Well, without the app. So if you don't have the app, how do you track? Do you track at all?
You get a diary out, like John's diary.
No. See, well, the national health agencies, they have the burden to trace back your steps if you happen to be infected. And they will conduct interviews and whatever to figure out who to inform. But that's actually an interesting point, because you can actually reverse it. If we go back to John and his coffee shop, what do you actually hope to get out of your app when you're at the coffee shop? Let's say there was another person around that happened to be infected. Your app tells you about it. What do you do? I mean, what do you get out of it?
Well, there's the theory, and then there's what I suspect might be the reality. I'll get into this, but I also want to give a reflection of a colleague of mine I was talking to just a couple of days ago, a friend of mine rather. So in theory, what happens is I get notified I was in proximity to somebody who subsequently turned out to be infected. I then either quarantine myself, or if there's any symptoms already, I go get tested. And the idea is to kind of jump on and contain an outbreak before it goes any further. That's the idea. But going to, I think it was Catherine's point about could you enforce this? Well, good luck with that in Australia. The friend of mine I was talking to is a Qantas A380 pilot. So this is an intelligent, educated, worldly guy. And he hadn't downloaded the app, and we were talking about it and wanted to get his thoughts. And he said, so if I happen to have been in this awful coffee shop, which clearly is a hotspot, and I could be on my way to make a flight, and an hour before that flight, I get a call saying I was in proximity, I'm supposed to not take that flight now? And he was horrified that I suppose by proxy, the government would be telling him that he had to stop his job. And this is not someone from the backwards. This is a bright guy, but he was very focused, very motivated to get back to his normal life, and did not want the government interfering with that.
But how are the chances? Like, let's get back to your coffee shop, and you had a chance encounter with someone who was waiting in line as well. Someone there turned out to be infected. You don't know who it was. You can't determine for yourself how close in contact you guys were. So basically, all you get is the information that well, someone you interacted with or not was infected. Is that enough for you to turn your life around, change it, and just like self-isolate? You can't really rely on it. I mean, it doesn't mean that you're probably infected. You do not know the probability. So I'm not trying to discredit the app. I'm trying to figure out what to get out of it and how people will react if they get notified.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
The opposite isn't true either. You can't. Well, if your app does not tell you that you have been in contact with someone who happens to be infected, does this mean that you probably won't have the virus? Probably, but you can't rely on either. So
on the other side, if I was having a coffee with John, no one else, and we have
You just dropped out there, JJ.
Oh, apologies.
Right.
Am I back?
Yes, I think you're back.
Yep.
Yes. If I was having a coffee with John face to face, and he was the only person I met with in a 2 or 3 week period, and then I got notified that I was in contact with someone who has now been found positive to COVID-19, I know it was John. So there's that element too to consider. I wouldn't judge you, of course, John. However, there's that privacy
Cursed
element
you.
as well. So it's not about details or data. I know I was in contact with John. So there's that other side as well.
Jackie?
Yeah,
Mark.
But if John was the only person in three weeks period that you have met, you wouldn't need an app for that.
Yeah, that's true.
Just to
But
remember.
I'm keeping quarantined, so to speak. I'm really doing the best I can because of the nature of some people in my family who are at that high risk level. So, yeah, it's, to me, the app really doesn't do too much because I'm not out enough for it to even be used.
Yeah.
But I think Jens's point is a good one. There is no certainty in this.
No.
All we're trying to do is trying to swing the balance to perhaps make our testing a little bit more focused, to have a better chance, and that's all it is. It's a better chance at trapping those outbreaks before they spread. So perhaps I wouldn't quarantine. Perhaps I'll just rock on straight down to the nearest medical center and get myself tested, and that could reveal that I was infected in 3 or 4 days, as opposed to waiting potentially up to, I gather, between 10 to 15 days before it might actually show. It's around improving the odds.
Yeah, they also talk about that we have to download a certain number of it for it to work, and my understanding is that we're more than 2 million downloads now in Australia. So what does that mean? Vanessa or Jackie, can you shed a light on that?
I believe that it means, I think they said that, I read a statistic that 40% of Australians need to actually download it for it to be successful. So that means that we've got a bit of a long way to go in order to get that mass. And I guess some of the restrictions behind, and some of the problems with that is that not everyone is digitally savvy. Like, we've got a lot of the older generation that don't actually have a device, so it will be quite difficult for them to be downloading this. But the other side is that if we don't try to encourage more people to do it, then we will never know if it actually was something that could have helped us during this extraordinary time. So, there's a lot of different factors that are contributing to this. So yeah.
Yeah, I look at it. I look at it. So I've got 3 kids, and they're about to go back to school, and one of them catches the train to school, and this whole school environment is going to be different. There's a lot of spacing. That's all going to happen. But my kids need that school environment for the extra support, learning support. So they are super keen to go and have it. I was thinking this before. Again, we made it. Again, my wife and I, we don't actually see too many people. We have got what's called our bubble friends. We live in the bubble. That's it. And then we only see those people. But the kids, they're going to be on the train, and they'll be sitting on the train for 20 minutes to get to the school, and then they'll be sitting in the classroom together. So then if they made it mandatory that, again, all kids had that app, then you would know really quickly that maybe you were sitting next to like 2 seats away from somebody on the train, and then. And you got that notification, and then at least you're in sort of a risk. You could make a risk-based decision whether or not that child has to work from home for another week, and then so it's all about really being aware, so you can actually make the right decisions, and to slow this thing down as best as we can. That's where I would like to see it occur. Again, that doesn't work for primary school kids and whatever, but there's a certain age group where I think you can make that work. And even as you're going back into the office space, we're looking at doing like the 50-50 split in the office, and suddenly you may be sitting with someone 2 meters away or an extra workstation away, and then at least you know that person has there's been a case in the office, and you can make that call. So I just think it's about choice and be a willing participant in that, and actually, because it's not so much I'm not necessarily in the higher risk bracket, but again, it's doing it for everybody else, trying to do my bit to slow the spread.
Although I heard that there was 10 million downloads that they were looking for. I read a few things today that said we were at 5.1 million, so I don't know if that's the case.
Yeah, I read that as well.
I read that as well, yeah.
Yeah, so that's quite, because the last time I looked, it was just over 2 million.
Yeah.
But I thought to myself, what happens with that 10 million? What if the bulk of that occurs in New South Wales and Victoria? I'm in Adelaide or South Australia. I actually want to know what percentage of that 40% is in my state. Not that I don't care about others, but 10 million doesn't necessarily reflect across the board. So I would like to know, and I did a lot of searching, I couldn't find anything that said, what does the breakdown look like for the states then? And we should be reporting on that, because we're all at different levels at the moment of with the virus. So that would be even nice to know.
Vanessa, I mean, what's your perspective?
So I really respect the people who are saying that they don't mind that much about the privacy of their face-to-face contacts. And I completely understand that, and I think many Australians would agree with you, but I think would feel the same way as you. But I think it's really important to remember in this conversation that not everybody is as relaxed and safe in this country as we are. And I think for some people, the privacy of their face-to-face contacts, either from people who have installed spyware on their phone or from the Australian government or from some other nasty foreign government, is actually a valid concern. Even if the app isn't doing a lot of the normal spyware kind of things, it is gathering a new kind of information that is not otherwise easily available. So if you're a journalist meeting a source face-to-face, if you're a survivor of domestic violence, if you're a pro-democracy activist from a country whose authoritarian government takes an interest in their expatriates, then I think you have a reasonable concern over whether or not you necessarily want to be running Bluetooth, and this app in particular, when you're at a political meeting or you're visiting your lawyer or you're meeting a source.
Couldn't you switch it off in those circumstances?
Yeah, you could. Absolutely. I agree. And I think it's not just a binary question of whether you download it or you don't download it. I think for many people, you would run it on the train, but not run it at home. If you're a journalist, you might run it when you're at the footy, but not run it when you meet a source. Or there are a lot of decisions that individuals could make that are refined decisions reflecting their own privacy needs. And I feel like we need to communicate carefully what the privacy implications are so that people can make their own choices.
And absolutely. Look, I have not downloaded the app. So at the end of this panel conversation, I'm going to walk away and based on what I'm hearing is going to either swing me to one or stay with where I am. So it's the information that you provided. Because I think at one stage when Jackie and Mark was speaking and John and I'm thinking, okay, all right, I haven't downloaded, maybe I will. And as listening to Jens and then to Vanessa, I'm thinking, oh no, maybe I won't.
Because you are a politician.
So
Those people are tapping into your phone.
Yeah,
right?
but with Bluetooth technology-wise though, are you saying that because this is some of the arguments that you hear, that they said, it's only Bluetooth, it's not GPS tracking.
Yeah,
so
we don't understand
what does
Bluetooth
it mean?
enough.
Bluetooth, GPS. I mean,
What's the
really, they still wavelength, isn't it?
So I'd suggest the key word there is yet. So GPS is the mechanism by which you do location tracking. It's one of the methods by which you do location tracking. There are a number of others. But that's the way this app would probably work in the future, when I suspect we will get a version of the app with location tracking in it. And that's the kind of thing I was hinting at earlier, because we're all very keen to get to the new version of normal, whatever that's going to be. So that, restaurants, beaches, gyms, cinema, theatre, flying and travel, that's the light at the end of the tunnel. And we're all hoping the app is going to get us there. But the only way we're going to get to that is if the government thinks it's in a position where it can, not the only, the most likely way that we're going to get to that is if the government thinks that it can quickly identify and jump on and contain any outbreaks. And if we get to that point, then it becomes kind of safe that we can do all those things, because even if we get it, we can be identified quickly and the people who might have got it from can be identified quickly. But that's not going to happen quickly. And that kind of breaks one of the government's implied promises that this is a temporary thing. This isn't a 3 month, 6 month, 1 year thing. This app is with us for a long time now. Mm-hmm. And if we want to then extend the idea to travel, we've already had conversations about the idea of the Tasman bubble, I think it's called. So New Zealand's doing very well. We're doing very well. Hey, why not open up travel between those two? Seems like a no-brainer, right? So then you'd naturally extend that to other safe countries. That could be, believe it or not, South Korea, who seem to have got theirs under control. It could be, oh my God, China got theirs under control. And that's fabulous, because then we've rebooted international travel and some commerce. But it does introduce a whole bunch of other things there. We have now given up liberties. And liberties once gone are very, very, very hard to get back again. And you might potentially end up with a two-tier world, the safe countries and the not so safe. Some of them will, the ones in the safe part will obviously be very happy about that. But I can imagine the criteria and how you manage the criteria for what is a safe and not safe countries is going to be a difficult conversation, particularly with a certain gentleman in the US.
Yes.
Vanessa, you were to jump in before to say something about GPS and Bluetooth?
Without disagreeing with John, but just ask the specific technical question, what's the difference? And the difference is GPS is an absolute location. So your phone can figure out exactly what its latitude and longitude is based on the GPS satellites, whereas Bluetooth is relative proximity. I mean, Bluetooth is just communication with things nearby, but when we talk about Bluetooth location tracking only works through Bluetooth if somebody has put a Bluetooth receiver somewhere that they know, like a shopping centre or a train station or something. And if they are receiving or sending Bluetooth messages to and from your phone, then either the app or the Bluetooth receiver, if it can recognise you, can tell exactly where you are. But it's saying, I'm near this particular receiver. It's not saying I'm at latitude and longitude, whatever, which is what GPS is doing.
Okay.
Jackie? So who gets a receiver? Is it like a So the person that has coronavirus would be a receiver, is that right? Because then the two Bluetooth thingies are talking to each other.
Well, it depends. So what it's supposed to be, in the nice world in which everybody only uses it as intended, is it's supposed to be that two people running the app on their phones are the sender and the receiver. So all they learn is that they were near each other without necessarily learning absolute location. But the problem is, of course, that there are lots of other people who would love to figure out whether you're nearby them using Bluetooth, because it's much more precise, especially inside, than GPS. And in fact, long before we decided to use this for COVID tracing, Google and other advertising agencies thought this would be a wonderful way of figuring out, who was wandering through their shopping centre and who was looking at what ads while they were walking past what shop and so forth. So there's a lot of banal advertising-based location tracking that happens or could happen through Bluetooth if more people turned it on.
That sounds really
That's
dodgy.
basically the reason. That's basically the reason why Google and Apple are limiting access to that interface.
Yeah, well, Apple is. I don't know whether Google is or not, but yeah. Exactly. So there are good reasons that this was a restricted thing.
Right. Jackie and Mark, what's your perspective on that, the GPS, the Bluetooth?
So Jackie? No? Okay, well, my perspective, I think, though, I would not be comfortable with GPS. I know it's more accurate. Again, I think that for me, my tolerance levels would just be, that would nudge it over the other side if suddenly the government tracked everything where everybody where it was. Now, again, I'm just that sort of that person that I do turn it off when it adds value to me. Also, I turn it on when it adds value and turn it off when it doesn't. So again, because there are some scenarios when it does actually work. I guess again, I can do that reasonably easy. I would never expect my mum to be able to go and do that and turn it off and on. So there's work that has to be done there on again sending that message. And the challenge that they're going to have is we've got this consistent app is expected across a huge range of Android platforms, like Apple devices. How are you going to get that consistency of experience and that to give that assurity that this app in there and what it does is actually going to be consistent and actually add some value? And I think that's a real struggle. I was looking at some comments today when looking at the feedback from the review. I'm an iOS user and looked at it and looking at what were the complaints when somebody gave it as a 1 star. And one of the ones I said to my wife before, this is a classic. Okay, she goes, "Oh, my phone's not good, and I don't use my phone much. So what I did, I installed it on my iPad." I go, well, yeah, but you're not going to walk around with your iPad, and it's not going to add any value. And they go, "Don't like this app, 1 star." Going, well, it's a bit of a tough sell. So, but hey, this is the type of scenario that you're going to have to deal with, and suddenly they can turn that bad experience and talk to their network. And the government needs to do a really good job of pitching this well and giving some assurances. And the past records haven't been great. That they've really not had a grasp of technology to be able to go and sell it effectively.
Absolutely.
So that's the problem that they face.
Absolutely. Jackie?
Interesting. Sorry,
JJ, go on.
No, Jackie, go.
Oh, okay. Similar to Mark, if they were to do it by geolocation, I would be changing my opinion on the whole thing. And similar to Mark, whenever it comes to an app, like all apps, all software, unfortunately, has flaws in it. And what I do every time I look at an app or I use an app, I always look at the settings. What are they actually using? Are they trying to access my photos or my microphone when it really doesn't need to? And really restricting it down to what the bare minimums of what it actually needs to use in order for that application to function. And in this particular application, I've looked at the settings, and that it, from what we can actually turn on and off, it seems pretty reasonable. It's not trying to access, my geolocation or anything like that. Yes, it's wanting access to my Bluetooth, but out of the two, Bluetooth, I think, for this particular function is okay.
JJ?
Yeah, I was just going to say part of my decision-making process of do I install it or not really did come down to that Bluetooth. On what Vanessa was saying, anyone really in that that vicinity of me, should they want to target me, could quite easily get access to everything in my phone. And how would I feel about that? And then I thought, well, at this point, I'm wearing my Bluetooth headset, looking like a real geek as I walk around the shops, because I don't want to be touching my phone. I can just say answer and look like one of those weird people talking to the air. And to me, that was like, okay, well, if my Bluetooth headset will be on, then I'll go with it. But there is still that concern of if I was going to a cyber event, there is no way, no way I would allow that app to be on. Because as we know, those in the know will check settings, those in the know will go and have a look. Those who are aware of privacy settings and what have they got access to, and that apps automatically turn everything on and you've got to go in and turn it off. We know that. And to Mark's point, we need to communicate that in a clear, easy to understand language to the general population so that they know how to actually check my settings. Because the government says, check your settings. The
And how?
majority of people say, what are you talking about?
Yeah, exactly.
So, that's what we need to really look at.
So Jen, listening to our Australian, counterparts here, with the app, what we're discussing, what's your feeling with what do you think where Germany will be heading? Because I believe that Britain, apparently by mid-May, the UK government is announced it's going to have its own contact tracing app, and it's undergoing testing at the moment and will be likely to be available mid-May. So what's your view from Germany's perspective?
Well, we're going to have an app. It's going to be following a decentralized approach. So basically, all those Bluetooth connections you make are going to remain on your phone. And your phone is going to make a determination if you came into contact with anybody who, checked out or turned out to be infected. It's not going to be mandatory. You can install it if you want. And so they are trying to take a privacy focused approach on it. I think Great Britain is actually an interesting case because, as you said, they have their own app, and they are not following a decentralized approach. Basically, they are uploading all your contacts to a central instance, and naturally, Apple, for example, is restricting access to their Bluetooth interface on iOS devices. So I think JJ mentioned earlier that your app isn't working on iOS yet. Once your phone is locked, they would experience the same technical difficulties, but figured out a actually quite clever way around it. To simplify a lot here, but basically what happens is it doesn't work correctly on iOS. So you cannot, your iOS device with the Great Britain app cannot discover other devices around and record those contacts, I guess. But they are using Android devices to discover iOS devices, which then, given that everything is collected in a central instance, gets bunched together again. So that's where they build a complete picture. We will have to see how long Apple is going to allow this to go on like that, because they were using quite a lot of clever workarounds to make it happen the way they're doing it right now.
It's worth pointing out that in Australia, there are quite a few frustrated Bluetooth experts who have been trying to tell the Australian government how to fix some of the Bluetooth bugs in our app that have just not been fixed. So some of these clever things that the UK has done are potentially doable here. The DTA just hasn't bothered to do them.
So which countries kind of doing kind of well in terms of with the COVID app, if you can say do it well, like, have come up with a good solution?
I mean, Singapore is always used as a prime example for, well, they did a good job in general, but only they only had like a 20% adoption rate on their app, as far as I know. So I guess it's fair to say that we're quite limited into what we can do. Basically, the only effective tool we have in at our disposal is to isolate or quarantine, which is like, it comes from the medieval times, basically. But we haven't really discovered anything better yet. Or we don't have anything that works more effective than that. And I don't think a tracing app is going to be the solution. But I feel like it could be part of the solution if it helps us to determine who needs to self-isolate, who needs to be tested more effectively. So I don't think it's going to depend too much on the adoption of the app, or not everything can be solved in an app, but it can be quite helpful to maybe have it, or it can give you information to make a risk-based determination how to proceed.
I think it's again, you just if you play some of these things out, and you're again, so sorry JJ for stealing some of your thunder there, but like if you add some incentive to get people to use it. So I don't know, do you want to go to a cafe, right? Do you want to sit with 10 people in a cafe? Make sure you're all turning it on. Turn it off when you get home. But if you want to go to the bar, turn it on. You want to go to a cinema, turn it on. So again, they're those sort of places. So we don't really need to know where you were, but when you are, if you want to do stuff with a crowd, then these are some of the prerequisites. Now things are changing. Maybe this is part of the new normal. It's like there's not as many hugs anymore. There's not as much handshaking going on.
No kissing.
Maybe we're going to go down to more Bluetoothing when we need it. Who knows where this is going to go? But yeah, again, there's some. I guess we can. Again, if this returns us to normal, or to some sort of normal, let's be practical about it. I don't think mandating it for everybody and forcing it down, that's not our society. It's not going to work. But make it there for somebody else. So make sure that there's some incentive for them to go ahead and do it, and maintain that transparency. Yeah, I think we just need to sort of continue to sort of evolve that marketing.
And to Vanessa's point, make sure those vulnerable people in those situations are protected, and we find alternative ways to support them, because I hadn't really thought about that element. So thank you for bringing that to the table, Vanessa.
Yeah. Look, I think we can continue on because it's gone to about an hour now. I'm thinking I could ask you more questions, but I think thank you so much. We would probably continue on this conversation, because I'm thinking to myself, as you guys were saying, I'm thinking, well, another solution would be to find vaccine, to get to the vaccine as quickly as possible, to get to some medication as quickly as possible, and that way, we can take, medication, so that way we can go out and all that stuff. But look,
I think we need doctors for that panel.
Yeah.
Try getting 6 doctors.
Yeah. But thank you so much for your time, for providing us with your very, very valuable time, and offering us your insights and perspective. We will have your details on the website, on the podcast that we'll share. And we've got your details. If there's anything that anybody would like to say, can I go through again the 6 and any last advice, any last words from each one of you? That'd be great. Going from Jen, going back up. Jen, JJ, Vanessa, John, Mark, and Jackie.
Well, thank you very much for having me. And stay safe and healthy.
Thank you very much. It's been an honour to be on the panel with such wonderful people. And the best thing to do is, if you're in a position to download it. And to Mark's point, if you're out in a group, turn it on.
Vanessa?
I'd be a lot more comfortable with this if Australia followed Germany and a decentralised solution. Since they're probably not going to, I think the important thing is to remember that different people have different privacy needs, and each person needs full, accurate information to make up their own mind.
Yeah, I'm not convinced it's going to get us to where we really need to be, but it is a step in the right direction. So I would be encouraging people to load it. And thank you for inviting me to join the panel.
Yeah, I'd like to say thank you as well. It's been a really informative panel, and so again, it's always good to sort of see everyone's perspectives. Look, I in this current state, I'm keen and I am supporting it, but I am really concerned that they're going to take these liberties and go too far. And I also want to make sure that there's an exit plan from here as well. So when we do get that vaccine, I really want to make sure that that any of this requirements, this data, that all gets rolled back. So for here and now, I can see it, but when this is over, we'll wind it back.
Thank you.
Jackie?
I was going to say exactly the same point. I mean, what I'm wanting to get out of this, like when we get exit this, I'd love to see, make sure that the data is being deleted. They're not going to use it for what they, that app was meant to be there for. And also wanted to also say, Vanessa, your point about that whole risk-based thing is spot on. There are people out there that, they're vulnerable, and we definitely don't want them to be put at risk. But ultimately, everyone has to make their own decision on this. But if we don't try, we'll never know as well. So,
thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks for joining DAWNCast, and that's our episode, a special episode in COVID-19 app discussion conversation with a wonderful panel of cybersecurity and technical experts sharing with us their insights and perspectives. So, see you in the next episode. I'm Jayne, and
I'm Kathy Ngo.
Make sure you subscribe to our channel. Click the link below, and
like the video.
Like the video, and thank you.
Thanks for joining.
Bye.
Bye now.